Warning. This documentary series aims to report on degenerate behavior online. We do not condone harassment, doxing, or violence against anyone featured in this series. This content shown is for educational and awareness purposes only and should not be replicated. The series contains strong language, disturbing themes, and sensitive topics. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to our beautiful podcast set. As you see with the little views that we had, we were able to purchase this beautiful podcast studio here in Burbank, California. No, I'm just playing with you guys. Welcome. Welcome to Unmoderated, When Discord Goes Too Far. Episode 3 is going to be a podcast about the psychology behind Discord's dark side. All right, let's get into it. The internet, and specifically platforms like Discord, have become a breeding ground for some of the worst aspects of human behavior. People feel bold behind their screens, saying things that they would never dare say in real life. But why? What is it about online spaces that brings out this level of toxicity? That's exactly what we're about to break down today. For some people, being online is like putting on a mask. They think that just because they're hiding behind a username, their actions have no real-world consequences. They treat others cruelly, spread misinformation, harass people, and cultivate a culture of hate, just because in their minds, they're untouchable. But here's the thing. Just because something happens online doesn't mean it isn't real. The impact of online toxicity extends far beyond the internet, affecting real lives, real mental health, and real communities. The problem isn't being anonymous, it's the illusion of power. Some of these people come online because they feel powerless in their real lives. Maybe they're insecure or frustrated or struggling with personal failures. Instead of fixing their own shit, they throw that energy outward. They create drama, attack others, and spread negativity because it gives them a temporary sense of control. And they thrive in an environment where there can be no immediate consequences, where they can say the most vile things and still wake up the next day without having to face the people they've hurt. But let's be real, if these same people were confronted in person, would they act the same way? Hell no. That's because in the real world, words have consequences. You harass someone, you threaten someone, you spread hate, you're getting checked, you're getting held accountable. But online that accountability is missing. Platforms either don't do enough to moderate, or they only step in when something blows up into a massive scandal. Until that changes, these toxic environments will keep thriving. That's why we're here. We're here to expose this fucking behavior, to call it out, and break down exactly why it happens. We're going to analyze the psychology behind online toxicity, the Dark Triad Personality Types, the mental health consequences of being toxic and being exposed to toxicity. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about what happens online. It's about who you really are as a person. The internet doesn't fucking make you toxic. It just shows you who you've been this entire time. And we're about to dive into all of it. So buckle up. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's talk about why people feel like they can act completely differently online than they do in person. This is something called the Online Disinhibition Effect. Sounds fancy, but it's really just a psychology term for why some people turn into absolute fucking goblins the second they turn on Discord. Now there's two kinds of disinhibition. First, we got benign disinhibition. That's when people actually open up more online, in a good way. Sharing personal stories, supporting each other, being vulnerable. Basically, when the internet lets people be their true selves without fear. That's cool, right? But then there's toxic disinhibition. And this is when people decide that because they're behind a screen, they can say the worst, most unhinged, gremlin-like nonsense with zero consequences. You ever see someone go from normal dude to supervillain the second they log on? That's what this is. So why does this happen? Well, my guy John Suler, and sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, John, this professor of psychology, he broke it down into 6 main reasons. And I'm going to make this real easy to understand, so stick with us. First, we got dissociative anonymity. When people feel like no one knows who they are, they start acting reckless. Think about it. If you walked around with a bag over your head all day, you'd probably say some wild stuff, right? Same thing online. The less people know about you, the bolder you get.
Number 2 is invisibility. So you can't see me, I can be a menace. Online, there's no eye contact, no facial expressions, no body language, none of the usual social cues that make us act like decent fucking human beings. It's like screaming insults from behind a wall. You don't see the immediate reaction, so it doesn't really feel real.
And next, we got asynchronicity. I can say some crazy shit to you and just leave. In real life, if you say something dumb, you get an instant reaction. People side-eye you, call you out, or they just walk away. Online, you can say something absolutely fucking horrible, log off, and go eat a sandwich like nothing happened. That delay between saying something and facing consequences, it makes people way too comfortable.
Number 4, we have sophilistic interjection, aka talking to myself, but in a chat room. This one sounds weird, but stay with me. When you're talking to someone online, you don't hear, well, sometimes you do hear their voice, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you see their face, sometimes you don't. So whatever information your brain doesn't have, it just fills in the blanks. You're not really talking to them. You're talking to a version of them in your head. And sometimes that version is way fucking off. That's why people misinterpret jokes, get defensive, or assume everyone's out to get them. It's like arguing with a character you invented in your head.
The next one we got is dissociative imagination. Basically, this isn't the real world, so it doesn't count. Some people convince themselves that what happens online isn't real. They treat the internet like a video game, where trolling, harassment, and toxic behavior are just part of the fun. But newsflash, when you ruin someone's day online, it's real life. The only difference is, you don't have to see the damage you caused.
Minimalization of authority. No one's gonna stop me, so why not? In the real world, you mouth off to the wrong person, you get consequences. You talk back to your boss, you get fired. You start something in public, you're probably getting knocked the fuck out. But online, a lot of these spaces have zero real authority. Mods are asleep, admins don't care, and the worst you get is a warning. So people push limits because no one's fucking stopping them.
So there you have it. The 6 reasons why people act brand new online. And when you put them all together, you get the Discord trolls, Twitter beef, and grown adults throwing tantrums online like it's their full-time fucking job. But let's be clear. None of this excuses the behavior. Just because there's a reason doesn't mean it's justified. At the end of the day, the internet doesn't make you toxic. It just shows who you really are when you think no one's watching. But here's the thing. We are watching. And now that we understand how this works, let's talk about what happens when people let this toxicity become their entire personality. All right, so let's talk about the kinds of people who thrive in online toxicity. There's actually a name for them, the Dark Triad. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a prison gang. But really, it's just 3 personality traits that are, a huge red flag. We're talking about narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
Yeah, and before you say it, no, this isn't some edgy internet alpha male diagnose. We're going to sit here with our hands in triangles bullshit. Okay, this is backed by psychology. These traits are found in people who manipulate, exploit, and straight up enjoy screwing with others. But let's break them down.
First up, we got narcissism. You ever met someone who thinks they're the main character in every conversation? They crave attention, think they're better than everyone, and the second you challenge them, they flip out online? These people are everywhere. They need validation and control. And they get it by just stirring up drama.
Next, Machiavellianism. This is my favorite because it sounds super fancy, but really it just means being a manipulative little snake. These are the people who don't just cause drama, they do it strategically. They play both sides, gaslight, and do whatever it takes to win, even if winning is just making everyone fucking miserable.
You got psychopathy. Now, this is the scariest one. No empathy, no guilt, no remorse. Some people just enjoy watching others suffer. Online, they'll harass, dox, send threats, because to them, it's just a game. So, yeah, the internet didn't make these people. It just gave them a playground.
All right, let's talk about being anonymous because, let's be real, it's the number one reason why people act like complete fucking clowns online. If you strip away names, faces, and accountability, people think they can say anything without consequences. And you know what? Most of the time, they're right.
Yeah, and that's where de-individualization kicks in. Fancy word, simple meaning. When people blend into a crowd, they lose their sense of self and just follow whatever chaos is happening. It's why you see people acting totally different in a mob versus when they're alone. Online, everyone's part of a digital mob, and it brings out the worst in them.
And we see it in every toxic community. It's the second there's no direct accountability for people start doing wild ass shit like flaming, trolling, doxing. Half these people would never even honk at someone in traffic, but online, they're acting full on fucking supervillain.
Right, because they don't feel like it's real. There's no immediate backlash, no body language to read, no social consequences. It's all just text on a screen to them. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have real life effects.
Exactly, and until platforms actually enforce consequences, real ones, not just, oh, you're banned for 24 hours, this problem's going to keep getting fucking worse. Being anonymous gives people freedom, but without responsibility. It just turns into a dumpster fire. And this just isn't an internet problem. This is a people problem. And it's about time we start holding people accountable, both online and offline. All right, let's get into this. We all know that one dude who's straight up an internet warrior, typing paragraphs of insults, starting fights, and acting like he's the baddest thing since Steven Seagal's version of himself in his own head. But in real life, it's the same guy that can't even go to McDonald's and ask for extra ketchup because he has anxiety.
Right? You'll see them throwing absolute haymakers in a Discord chat, but in person, they're barely making eye contact. It's a whole different vibe. And there's a reason for that. It's called situational confidence. Some people feel powerful in certain environments, and online, that's their domain. The keyboard is their sword, the screen is their shield, and as long as they're behind it, they think they're untouchable.
Exactly, but you take them out of that environment, put them face to face with a real person, different story. And this isn't just about the tough guys. You got people who are super confident and like outspoken online, but in real life, they're completely socially anxious. And that's because the internet gives them a safety net. No one's looking at them. No one's reading their body language. No immediate reaction. You're not being perceived.
Yep. And that's where this gets psychological. A lot of these people use the internet as a place to express emotions they suppress in real life. Someone who feels powerless in their daily life gets to be an authority figure in an online space. Someone who's timid in real life can be loud and dominant in a group chat. It's not always toxic, but it definitely creates a divide between who they are and who they think they are.
And let's not forget, some people actually believe that their online persona is their real self. But here's the reality. You're only confident when you're anonymous. That's not confidence. That's comfort. That's a big difference.
And that's why so many of these so-called dominant personalities on Discord crumble when you meet them in person. They build up this digital identity when they're the boss, the alpha, whatever, and then reality hits. Because in real life, social interactions have consequences. If you act out of pocket in public, you're getting checked.
That's why a lot of them don't act like that in person. They know deep down they can't get away with it. It's like a mental switch. They go from internet warlord to silent observer as soon as they step outside.
Yeah, and it's not always conscious. It's a psychological comfort thing. Online, they control the environment. if they don't like a conversation, they can just leave. If they want to dominate a space, they can just type louder. But in real life, you can't just log out. When things get uncomfortable, and for a lot of people, that's terrifying.
And the funniest part, some of them think that they're the same person in both spaces. But if they were, they'd carry that same energy in real life. They don't. That's why the whole thing is just, oh, it's just who I am. Excuse falls pretty short.
Exactly. Who you are online and who you are in person, that's not always the exact same thing. And the more someone tries to convince you that it is, the more you should question it. Because real confidence, real personality, that exists in every setting, not just behind a screen.
Amen. So if we can get into something deeper, why do people act like this in the first place? Like, yeah, we know being anonymous, lack of consequences, let them get away with it. But why are some people drawn to being toxic in the first place? A lot of it comes down to how they were raised.
Yeah. People don't just wake up one day and decide to be a menace online. That kind of behavior comes from somewhere else. You ever notice how a lot of the loudest, most aggressive people online either had super strict, overbearing parents or zero structure growing up?
Exactly. If you grew up in a house where you had no control, where your parents dictated everything, never let you make decisions, maybe even punished you for having opinions, then guess what? You're going to go looking for control somewhere else. And for a lot of people, that somewhere else is the internet, specifically Discord.
And on the flip side, if you grew up with no structure, parents who didn't care what you did, no boundaries, no discipline, you might not even understand accountability in the first place. If nobody ever told you, hey, that's not okay growing up, you might not realize why people are mad when you're toxic online.
Right, and there's actual research behind this. Studies have shown that kids who grow up in super controlling households often become obsessed with power later in life. They never feel like they had any control as a kid. So when they finally get a space where they can be in control, like a Discord server, a gaming community, or even just their Twitter account, they go full dictator mode.
Nobody listened to me before, but now you have to. They're making up for all the times they weren't allowed to have authority. And honestly, it's sad. It's like they're stuck in this loop of trying to win at something that doesn't even matter.
And then there's the ones who got ignored as kids. Maybe their parents were always working. Maybe they got overlooked in a big family. Maybe they were just straight up neglected. These people who seek out attention online any way they can. Doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. They just need someone to acknowledge them.
And that's why you see people doing the most outrageous, unhinged stuff online. Some of them aren't even trying to be toxic. They just learn that acting out is the fastest way to get a reaction. And to them, any attention is better than none.
And let's be real, some people just grew up in environments where toxicity was normal. If all you saw growing up was people talking down to each other, bullying and arguing, you start to think that's just how people communicate. So they carry that same energy online because to them, that's just normal conversation.
Yeah, and when you mix all these different factors together, you get this perfect storm of toxicity. Some people are seeking control, some are desperate for attention, some just don't know how to interact in a healthy way because they were never taught. And when you put all them in the same online space, it's chaos.
Which is why none of this excuses their behavior. But it does explain it. And if you don't understand where something comes from, you can't fix it. People don't just act toxic for no reason. There's always a root cause. And if more people took the time to recognize that, maybe we'd be less in a mess online. I don't think people realize that if you come with compassion and you come with a little bit more understanding, it makes it easier for you to handle your emotions by understanding theirs a bit more and being able to know how to act appropriately.
All right, let's get serious for a second, because this part really matters. We talk a lot about how toxic people act, but we don't always talk about what happens when normal people get stuck in these environments. The ones caught in it, the ones who just want to chill, play games, or have conversations, they end up in a war zone instead. The truth is, toxic online spaces wreck people mentally. And a lot of the time, They don't even realize it until it's already happened.
Yeah, because it doesn't hit you all at once. It's not like you join a toxic Discord and instantly feel like garbage. Well, sometimes you do, but the actual feeling inside you, that's gradual. It starts small. Maybe you're in a community where people constantly roast each other. At first it's funny. Then it gets a little mean. Then you start noticing that every conversation just has negative energy. Then suddenly you feel like crap all the time and you don't know why.
That's the cycle. Toxicity feeds into itself. And when you're in it for too long, it becomes normal. If every day you log in and it's people dragging each other, fighting, and spreading negativity, your brain starts adapting to that environment. It rewires itself. And the worst part, that negativity sticks even when you log off.
And it's not just about dealing with negativity. It's about what it does to your mind. There's research showing that being exposed to constant hostility increases anxiety and depression. When your brain is always facing conflict, stress, your fight or flight response, it's working overtime, even when there's no actual danger.
Exactly. And that leads to low self-esteem, because after a while, you start absorbing that energy. If you're in a space where insults and criticism are flying constantly, you start believing it, even if it's not directed at you. It plants that seed of self-doubt, and before you know it, your entire self-image is shaped by the toxicity around you.
And let's not forget about how this messes with how people interact with people outside the internet. You ever meet someone who's been toxic online for way too long? They either start treating everyone like an enemy, or they completely shut down because they assume every interaction is going to turn into a fight.
Yup. And for some people, this turns into full-blown social anxiety. They get so used to toxic online interactions that they don't even know how to have a normal, healthy conversation anymore. They expect hostility, so they either avoid people altogether or act defensive from the jump. Either way, it isolates them.
And that's why this is a cycle. People who are already struggling with mental health might end up in toxic communities because they think that's where they're finding support. But instead, it just makes things worse. Then they lash out, push people away, and keep spiraling. This toxicity becomes their default state.
And look, I know some people might be thinking, well, why don't they just leave? It's not that simple. When a toxic space is all you know, leaving feels weird. It's like stepping into a quiet room, standing next to a loudspeaker all day. It's uncomfortable, and some people don't even realize how bad it is until they finally step away.
Which is why it's so important to talk about this. If you're constantly in a space that makes you feel drained, anxious, or just bad about yourself, that's not normal. That's not just how the internet is. That's a sign you need to step back and reevaluate. Because at the end of the day, no online community is worth sacrificing your fucking mental health. Are you or someone you love suffering from chronic online bigotry syndrome? Do you find yourself arguing with teenagers in comment sections, melting down over cartoons, or screaming about woke agendas in your mom's basement? Introducing MatureX. MatureX works by rewiring the part of the brain responsible for pointless internet rage and gently guiding users toward hobbies, personal hygiene, and human interaction. In clinical trials, MatureX users experience a 72% decrease in racist outbursts and a 95% reduction in arguing with bots, and a shocking 100% improvement in their chances of getting a job. Side effects may include
uncontrollable urges to go outside, sudden realization that women, minorities, and queer people existing is not a personal attack, increased ability to read past the headline, potential loss of alpha male university subscriptions, severe allergic reaction to Elon Musk tweets.
Before I found MatureX, I wasn't even thinking about going outside. But now, I regularly go outside. And also, I made a new friend. Say hi, Jimmy.
Before MatureX, I was a sad, scared piece of shit. But then I grew up and started taking my medication. MatureX.
Before I took MatureX, I was a real down in the dump dickhead, you know? No friends, no bitches, My dick couldn't get hard. I never went outside, all sorts of things.
Oh,
A little depressed,
this guy stinks!
Lost myself a little. It's okay. But now since I started taking Mature X, my dick's as hard as a rock.
Thank you, Mature X.
Thanks, Mature X.
Thank you, Mature X.
Ask your doctor if Mature X is right for you, or just log off and fucking go outside. Welcome back for the commercial break, everyone. We just had to take our Mature X, as we know of the great power of Mature X helping us to all become better within society. Speaking of power, or at least the illusion of it, because one of the biggest reasons people act toxic online is that they're chasing control. They don't have it in real lives, so they come online looking for it. And the easiest way to feel powerful, make someone else feel weak.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole punching down mentality. If someone's miserable in their life, the fastest way to get a dopamine hit is by tearing someone else down. And the internet, it makes it way too easy. No physical consequences, no risk of getting checked. It's the perfect setup for someone who wants to feel big, when in actuality, they're small.
That's where keyboard warriors come in. You ever notice how the most aggressive, loudest people online are usually the ones with the least going on in real life? It's like, dude, you're acting like a final boss in YouTube comment section. But I guarantee if someone confronted you in public, you'd suddenly not be about the drama.
Right? And it's because these people need validation. When you feel insignificant in real life, getting likes, retweets, or people gassing you up in a group chat feels like power. But here's the problem. It's not real power. It's temporary. It's hollow. And deep down, I feel like they know it.
And that's why they have to keep going. If their whole identity is built around being the guy who always wins arguments online, then they have to keep finding new people to fight. It's an addiction. They need that fix of superiority to avoid facing the reality that outside of their Discord server, no one gives a fuck what they think.
And let's be real, this behavior doesn't stop at the internet. These same people bring that energy into real life, and that's when you see the consequences hit. You ever meet someone who treats everyone like they're in a debate club 24/7? They don't know how to have a normal conversation because they've trained themselves to always be on the attack.
Yeah, and the worst part, a lot of them think that they're respected, but usually people just tolerate them. No one wants to be around someone who constantly needs to win. It's fucking exhausting, and eventually that catches up to them.
Which brings to the long-term consequences. Let's break it down short-term. Being toxic online can make someone feel powerful. They get attention, they get reactions, they get to feel like they, own someone. But long term, they're isolating themselves. They become that person that nobody actually likes. They just entertain. And when they eventually burn out or people stop engaging, they've got nothing left.
Because real power, real respect, that comes from actually building something, from having skills, from being someone people want to be around, not from trying to tear people down and just feel bigger. And the ones who figure that out, they're the ones who actually get somewhere in life. The rest, they just stay angry behind a fucking screen.
So we've talked about the people doing the toxicity, but now we got to talk about the victims, the people on the other end of it. For every troll, every keyboard warrior, every internet tough guy, there's a real person on the receiving end. And that does something to people.
Yeah, people like to act like it's just the internet, but that's some fucking bullshit. Words matter. Harassment, constant negativity, having a bunch of strangers pile on you, that sticks with people. It's not just mean comments. It can wreck someone's fucking mental health.
And the science backs it up. Studies show that cyberbullying has real-life consequences, not just emotionally, but even physically. People who get harassed online experience higher levels of anxiety, depression, and even PTSD symptoms. And here's the kicker. It doesn't just stop when they log off. That stress lingers. It changes the way they think, changes the way they see themselves, and it chips away at their confidence.
Some people, it gets so bad they start withdrawing completely. They stop posting, they stop interacting, they even start avoiding social situations in real life. because their brain is stuck in the I'm under attack mode. And that's how deep this stuff gets.
Yeah, and I mean, our brains aren't wired to handle that level of, public shaming. In the past, if you embarrassed yourself, maybe a few people saw it. But now, you make one mistake and suddenly it gets screenshotted, reposted, turned into memes, and dragged across multiple platforms. It's just overwhelming.
And don't even get me started on doxing, because that's when it goes from online drama to actual danger. When people start leaking personal info, sending threats, getting people fired from their jobs, or even swatting them, that's when you realize some of these people aren't just trolling, they're straight up fucking dangerous.
And the worst part about it, a lot of victims don't get help because they feel like nobody will take it seriously. People tell them to just log off, like that magically makes the damage go away. But imagine if someone followed you around all day in real life, insulting you, threatening you, spreading lies about you. You wouldn't just tell them to walk away. You'd recognize it as harassment. The internet is not any different.
Right, because even if the attacks stop, the damage is already done. People who've been through like serious online harassment develop things like trust issues, paranoia issues, and in some cases even fucking suicidal thoughts. And for what? Because some random dude with an anime profile picture wanted to feel powerful for 5 minutes?
And that's what really pisses me off. We need to stop acting like online harassment isn't real harm. It is. And if you see it happening, you can't just stand by, because silence is what fuels it. The more people let it slide, the more it grows, and at the end of the day, it's on all of us to call it out when we see it. We can't let these spaces be breeding grounds for toxicity.
All right, so let's talk about the so-called moderation on platforms like Discord. I know I've already done a video that is blown up at this point, but I'd really like to go over this a little bit here, because let's be real, for all their community guidelines and zero tolerance policies, a lot of these platforms are failing miserably at fucking keeping toxicity in check.
Yeah, and it's because the moderation is either too hands off or way too reactive. Like, you notice how these platforms only seem to care when something goes viral? When a controversy or something blows up and starts making headlines, that's when they scramble to review their policies. But before that, they let everything slide.
Right? And that's because at the end of the day, engagement equals profit. Platforms make money off people arguing, fighting, and staying online. Like, look at Discord Nitro. They're making money from this. If drama and toxicity keep people clicking, then why would they fucking want to stop it? They'll ban individuals when it's convenient, but the overall system, that'll stay the same.
And really, that's where the balance between free speech and moderation comes in. Because on one hand, yeah, people should be able to speak freely, but on the other hand, if your free speech involves harassing people, spreading hate, and making platforms unbearable for everyone else, that's not free speech. That's just being a fucking asshole.
Exactly, because you have the right to your opinion. You don't have a right to a platform. Free speech means the government can't throw you in jail for what you say. It doesn't mean that private companies have to let you act like a menace on their fucking platform. But the issue is, a lot of these companies don't enforce their own rules consistently. One server gets banned for toxic behavior, the other just as bad, completely ignored. It's all fucking random.
Exactly. And when the moderation is inconsistent, it just makes people more toxic. They know that they can get away with it. And let's be honest, some of these mods are part of the problem. You ever seen a Discord mod who lets their friends do whatever they want, but bans people they don't like? That's not moderation. That's just playing favorites.
And that's why real accountability is key. If platforms actually want to reduce toxicity, they need to do more than just hand out random bans and weak warnings. They need to enforce their own rules consistently. Like, no selective punishments, have actual trained moderators instead of letting just anyone with a power trip run a server. Give servers more tools to block and avoid toxicity, better reporting systems, more transparency, and actual consequences for repeat offenders.
Yeah, and another thing, maybe stop hiding behind the community guidelines that are so vague they mean nothing. If you want people to follow the rules need to be clear and fair. And if your platform is profiting off of toxicity, don't pretend to be surprised when things spiral out of control.
Bottom line, these companies have the power to clean this mess up. They just don't want to. Until people start holding them accountable, nothing's going to fucking change. All right, let's talk about something a lot of people like to pretend isn't happening. Gender dynamics in online spaces. Because if you spent more than 5 minutes on Discord, Twitter, or any gaming community, you've seen it. Women, non-binary folks, and other marginalized groups getting harassed just for fucking existing.
Yeah, and it's honestly fucking wild. A guy can hop into a server, say whatever, and no one bats an eye, but the second a fucking woman speaks, suddenly the energy changes. People start questioning if she really knows what she's talking about. They start making weird comments, or worse, they immediately go full on hostile.
And let's be real, this isn't just some random fucking behavior. This is systemic. Online toxicity is bad in general, but when gender gets thrown into the mix, it escalates. Women and LGBTQ folks get targeted in ways that men never have to deal with. We're talking straight up harassment, stalking, doxing, and even threats of violence.
Yeah, and the thing that really gets me, a lot of these dudes doing the harassing act like they're just joking, but it's never funny. I mean, they'll go around calling women the most absurd fucking names, like, calling them bitches, calling them the C word, or telling them to get back in the kitchen. Do you even play this game? You're only getting attention because you're a woman. Like, bro, get some new fucking material. You're embarrassing.
Exactly. And the worst part, if a woman pushes back even slightly and suddenly becomes aggressive or overreacting, dudes will go from harassing someone to playing the victim real quick the moment they get called out, like fucking clockwork.
Let's talk about the extra layer of toxicity for women in marginalized groups. If a woman is good at a game, here come the accusations of cheating. If she's successful on Twitch or YouTube, here comes she's only popular because she's hot. It's like some people can't handle the idea of a woman succeeding in their spaces.
And that's a thing. This isn't just a few bad apples issue. This is ingrained in internet culture. How many times have we seen high profile female streamers or journalists leave platforms entirely just because of fucking harassment? And instead of dealing with the problem, platforms just tell women to ignore it or just block them. That's not a solution. That's a fucking shrug.
And let's not forget how platforms play a role in this. If someone's getting harassed for fucking days, weeks, months, why does the victim have to keep reporting it over and over and over again? Why aren't these platforms doing more to protect people instead of just handing out weak bans that these trolls can bypass in 5 minutes?
Yeah, because there's the reality until platforms, moderators, and communities actually start enforcing zero tolerance policies on this kind of harassment, it's not going to stop. It's not enough to say we don't allow hate speech when people are doing that harassing, face no real fucking consequences.
And the thing is, people think that calling this out is hating men or being sensitive. No, it means wanting online spaces to be better for every single person. If you're mad that people are asking for basic respect, maybe you should ask yourself why that bothers you.
Fucking amen. Exactly. At the end of the day, if you're in a comfortable space where women in marginal groups don't feel safe, that should say a lot more about you than it does about them. And if that hits a nerve, maybe it fucking should.
All right. And let's talk about something that is pretty much everywhere online right now. OnlyFans, digital self-promotion, and the business of attention. Because let's be real, the internet isn't just a place to hang out anymore. It's a marketplace. It's a capitalist cesspool. And some people have figured out exactly how to cash in.
Yeah, and I feel like we got to start by saying this. There's a huge difference between people who are just hustling and people who are straight up attention seeking in the most annoying ways possible. Because self-promotion, cool. Get in your bag, cool. But if your whole personality is just click my link every 2 seconds, it gets fucking exhausting.
And Discord is one of the biggest platforms where this plays out. You got servers built around promoting content, whether it's OnlyFans, Twitch, Patreon, whatever. But the problem is when people are pushing it everywhere, even where it doesn't belong. You ever been in a gaming server where suddenly someone drops a sub to my OnlyFans link mid-conversation? Like, come on, bro. Read the room.
Yeah, and this is where things get messy, because some people see this as just another form of marketing, like promoting a YouTube channel. But let's be real, the only way OnlyFans and similar platforms are marketed is different. It plays into a whole other level of attention economy. It's not just watch my content, it's buy access to me, and that changes the dynamic completely. Twitch is getting to know someone, the other one is leading you to porn.
That's where the criticism comes in. Some people see platforms like OnlyFans as empowering, gives people, especially women, control over their own content, cutting out the middleman, making their own money. I mean, others see it as just another way for the internet to exploit people for clicks and cash.
And let's be real, it's both. It depends on who's in control. Some people are running their own thing, setting their own terms. Others are getting pressured into it because they feel like it's the only way to make money online. And then there's the audience side of it, because let's not pretend a lot of these platforms aren't built around parasitic attention-seeking people who just aren't selling content. They're selling connection. And that's what creates a weird dynamic where these dudes start to thinking they have actual relationship with the person they're subbing to, when it's a limerence with a full connection.
Yeah, the whole simp culture thing, it's one thing to support a creator. It's another to think they owe you something because you threw them $10. And Discord is full of this. You get dudes acting like they're in a real relationship with someone who doesn't even know their name. And when that illusion breaks, that's when you get the weirdest version of toxicity.
And let's not forget about the double standards. Women who do this get called all kind of names, but dudes who make money streaming or selling content, totally fine. Society still has this weird love-hate relationship with women making money off their image. It's either going to go get that bag or you have no self-fucking-respect, depending on who's talking.
The internet thrives on attention, whether it's through gaming, social media, OnlyFans, or whatever new platform pops up next. And the people who learn how to monetize and make money from that attention, they win. The problem is not everyone is built for the consequences of that. When you make yourself a brand, you also make yourself a target. And for some people, the pressure and backlash that comes with that, it just isn't worth it.
And look, I know I'm a content creator too. I stream, I put stuff out, I promote, but I'm doing it for a reason. I make content that exposes people, that sparks real discussion, that promotes something bigger than just me. So yeah, maybe it's a little hypocritical to sit here and talk about attention seeking while I have my own audience, but at least I'm putting something out there that actually matters. I'm not just here begging for clicks with nothing behind it.
But there's a big difference between creating something valuable and just chasing engagement for engagement's sake. And if your whole online presence is just begging for attention, maybe you should, take a step back and ask yourself why. Because at the end of the day, not all attention is good attention.
What you need to ask yourself when you're engaging in something is there's negative attention seeking and positive attention seeking. Example, if you're just saying, you're feeling suicidal, you can go to someone and go, hey, I don't really like the way that I feel. I need some help right now. Can you help me? Positive attention seeking. Negative attention seeking is, I'm using it as a threat. So there's a difference between the two, and you should know which one you're engaging in. All right. So let's wrap this up by talking about one of the biggest drivers behind everything we've discussed so far. And you know what that is? Mature X. No, I'm kidding. Validation. Because at the end of the day, a lot of what happens online, whether it's toxicity, self-promotion, trolling, or drama, it comes down to one thing: people needing to feel seen.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where platforms like Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and even Twitch absolutely thrive. These places are designed to keep you chasing that validation, whether it's likes, retweets, subs, and reactions. Every little interaction gives people a dopamine hit. It's not just a chat room anymore. It's an attention casino. And, the house always wins.
You know what? I get it. While we've been making this video, I've been going back and looking at the views of the one that fucking popped up. I'm a content creator too. I stream, I put my work out there. I want people to engage with it. So I'd be a hypocrite if I sat here and say not to, like, I don't understand the appeal. But the difference is I'm not just doing it for attention. My content has a purpose, exposing the truth, creating discussions, putting something real into the world. And I'm not saying there's people who aren't doing that, but there is a lot of brain rot out there. And I think that's a great word to put in there. There's definitely a lot of brain rot. The problem is a lot of people online don't actually care what they're getting attention for, just as long as they're getting it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where things get really dangerous. Because if someone's whole identity is about how much engagement they get, they start doing whatever it takes to keep those numbers. And the easiest way to get attention online, be controversial, be toxic, be loud. It's, the most obnoxious people on the internet also tend to have the biggest followings. Take your Andrew Tates, take your Aiden Rosses. Those guys are the ones doing the best, and it's because they're toxic.
Exactly, and social media platforms know this. They prioritize drama. That's why negativity spreads way faster than anything else. A well thought out discussion post might get a few likes, a dumb rage bait tweet viral in fucking second. The system rewards the worst behaviors. That's what keeps people fucking engaged, fear mongering.
And that's why you see so many people losing themselves to this. They stop caring about being real, being good at something, or even being liked. They just care about something like their name being in a conversation. And the sad part is, the moment they stop entertaining, the internet moves on without them.
And that's what I want people to take away from this. I'm not saying validation is bad. Everyone wants to feel fucking appreciated. That's normal. But when you depend on it, when your entire self-worth is based on what strangers think of you online, well, that's when you start making choices that aren't really yours. And trust me, that never ends well.
I mean, that's why we wanted to talk and break this all down, not just to expose the toxic behavior, but to explain why people do it. People understanding it, that's the first step in stopping it. We know a lot of people won't care, but for the ones that do, hopefully this shines a little light on things most people don't even think about.
And at the end of the day, all we're saying is be real with yourself. Why do you do what you do online? Why do you engage in certain spaces? Why do you react the way that you do? If you can answer that honestly, you're already ahead of 99% of people on fucking Discord. And if you find that you're chasing validation in ways that are making you miserable, maybe it's time to step back and rethink the game. So we really appreciate if you got to the end of this. Thank you so fucking much. And there will be more content like this. It's really important for us to shine a light on this, maybe so people can learn something about themselves. Maybe, this will get someone angry enough to, spread it around and go, look at this fucking idiot, blah, 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 blah. Hey, man, the more people hear it, the better it is. This is super important to me. If I'm not either out there calling out people, for their behaviors, then I'm sitting and talking with people about how they can do better. I've had a lot of people, I just sit there and they're like, holy shit, you spitting facts, right? There's so much out there. We have to actively work against it. Right now we're in a point of turmoil and things are really bad and scary for a lot of people, especially if you're part of marginalized groups. And, it's scary out there right now. And I want people to know that there are people who are trying to do better things. There are ways you can make yourself better. Sometimes, there's a saying that a friend used to tell me that what you think first is what you're programmed to think. And your second thought is who you are as a person. So let's try to get that second part of your brain to a point where we all love and care about each other a little bit more. Doesn't mean you have to be some, big tree hugging, hippie type kind of person. Just want to raise the amount of people who actually know how to show decency and kindness in this world.
Yeah, and if you yourself are someone who maybe spreads that toxic environment, you know, people cut you off like that, maybe you should try Maturex. Anyways, go subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm going to upload all the trailers and shit we make there. Yeah, see ya.